You can now support me on Patreon. Since Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk has hit theaters, once again playing with time and how it's distorted amongst the different layers of its story, today I'm going to talk about my love-hate relationship with Inception. When Inception was released in 2010, I, and most people I knew, were pumped for it. The trailers had done nothing but fuel my expectations. Add to that, we had three of my favorite actors, Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and post-Bronson Tom Hardy, joining the fold. Admittedly, if you look back at the trailer, it is a sprawling epic, but it feels like the actual team was only Leo and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That it was more of a heist film with an illegal element, almost gentlemen thieves for lack of a better term. What we got was an intricate movie that spends the majority of its runtime giving us spectacle after spectacle. It's a tremendous movie with a great structure to it, with multiple timelines playing out at once at different frequencies. In its attempt to make sure we understand every reason why something happens, they leave almost nothing for us to interpret. Like a clock, all these pieces have to connect perfectly or else we're left with an incoherent mess. Don't get me wrong, I couldn't have been more excited for this movie. When I first saw it, I had no problem with the technique, and as soon as the credits hit, I wanted more. I was enraptured by possibilities, and to be honest, I still crave an Inception anthology series that features a different heist with a different crew every episode. Or maybe a BBC-style miniseries structure where each team lasts 3 episodes. However, upon my second viewing, the excitement and love drained from my body. There was just nothing more to latch onto. There are a few small things that I'd like to bring up that can call certain segments into question, but otherwise the flick is just that. Another blockbuster movie, no matter how robust its fiction is. For someone like me that studies film, rather than letting them wash over me, this was particularly devastating. As long as you're paying attention, the first time you see Inception, you've gained all the information it has to offer. Unlike Nolan's other films, the only reason to watch this again is the spectacle. If I'm going to fire another shot across the bow, it's a similar issue with Interstellar. There are a lot of interesting ideas in here, but with some research you can find that a lot of them fall apart under closer scrutiny, especially in the second half of the film. Check out Twin Perfect's Fridge Logic Inception video to get a great look at how the rules are reversed in the second half, along with a lot of the other issues with the construction of the story. Maybe it was too much for me to ask with such an in-depth plot that it would have some flexing room to let you explore the ideas. And this is where my central problem lies with Inception. The character Ariadne. She's brought in as an audience surrogate, someone who has to be introduced to all the core tenets of the technology, an outsider that learns as we do. But using this crutch throughout the story, we're introduced to concepts so fully and so thoroughly that they answer every question you might have and leave little to no room for interpretation. Both of his other impossibly intricate films, Memento and The Prestige, have a large amount of wiggle room, allowing you to build your own theories over what is happening both on and off screen. Memento even had multiple ending commentaries that played both sides of the story, one where Teddy is lying and the other where he's telling the truth. It's a great way to extend the dialogue after the fact. There are several other movies that play with uncertainty in a virtual or dreamlike environment. Hell, The Matrix or The 13th Room are great examples of this. The closest I had seen to the ideas of Inception was with David Cronenberg's Existence, which is in no way viewer-friendly or, if I'm being honest, entirely enjoyable to watch. But there's a lot you can interpret, and while it's the ultimate video game that they're jacked into, it has the same element of being too far lost in the game that the players can't tell whether or not they're in reality or the game. While it may not be the most subtle thing, the last line of the movie is,
Hey, tell me the truth, but are we still in a game?
Obviously, Nolan went with a much more resonant way of getting that point across. The other film that I find has usurped Inception just about every way is Satoshi Kon's Paprika. This was obviously a huge inspiration for Inception, so much so that Nolan straight up mimicked shots from it. The main difference, however, is that Paprika plays with surrealism, linking multiple dreams together, using dream logic throughout and merging somber reality and insane dreams. For the uninitiated, Paprika revolves around a research team creating the DC Mini, a device that allows you to record and jump into people's dreams, only for it to be hacked and stolen by a rogue employee. The titular Paprika is a persona for one of the lead scientists that uses the DC Mini for therapy in secret. What follows is a surreal nightmare, where the dreams completely take over reality, causing people to transform into creations that feel like a modern reimagining of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Unreality takes over, and the entire last act of the story is impossible to explain with or without context, but manages to flow together and make sense, much in the way dreams do. To be honest, my issues with Inception do not spawn from my love of Paprika, but its existence shows a lot of the issues within Nolan's city-warping epic. For the most part, Inception leans on its rule-heavy logic. Dreams do not function this way, but I'm able to put that aside. The real issue is that it sets up these rules, but doesn't actually follow them in the last act. At one point, I started working on a fan edit of Inception. It fell apart rather quickly, especially in the light of the Fridge Logic episode, but I had gone through the movie a couple times, made notes with quick fixes as well as more systemic issues, and split the surround sound audio so I could cut audio without interrupting the music. As I've stated, the problem is the rules and Ariadne's being brought into the fold. Everything is explained to her. So one of the biggest corrections could be to strip out her discussions, giving only the barest of information as we need it to set the stage. If I could change anything about the execution of this spectacle, it would be to eliminate or drastically reduce her exploration of the group. One example of a broken system is the kicks. If it had been handled correctly, it would completely change how the last act of the film is played out. In the first half of the film, you have to kick someone in an upper layer to bring them out of a lower layer. That's why we get the awesome water kick in the opening that pours water through the castle as Cobb is awoken in the bathtub.
Give him the kick. What? Dunk him.
Even in the montage segment, we see them consistently being tipped in the effort to wake them up. However, at the end of the mission, their plan is to kick themselves from inside the dream up to the next layer, then to the next. As an added issue here, they are essentially killing themselves in the process, which should be taking them down to limbo. Limbo is an issue on its own, but let me ask you this. If all it takes to escape limbo is to kill yourself, then why are they so worried about dying and going to limbo? The threat they highlight is that you could get lost in the dream, but they've been prepared for this and could easily kill themselves as soon as they hit limbo, and then they're out. It's a mess. Totems are another big part of the system here. Over the various explanations of them, we learn a couple of key facts. 1. Totems are used to verify your reality. 2. Everyone has their own totem. 3. Each totem has a defining characteristic, such as weight. 4. You cannot let someone handle your totem, because that can be used against you in the dream. What's interesting about this is Cobb presents Mal's totem as his own. He explains how it works, allows Ariadne to handle it, and continues to use it until the end to make sure he isn't dreaming. So there's a big issue here and a fake out. But if we take for granted that Cobb has taken Mal's totem as his own, then there's an interesting confluence of events that calls the back half of the story into question for me. After multiple dream sequences, Cobb ends up in Mombasa in an effort to complete his team. During this chase, there's an odd moment where he gets trapped in a narrowing alley, much similar to a dream. For some reason, Cobb gets stuck in it and is almost unable to extract himself from it. In the original script, there was even more of a nightmare element to it, where the crowd had followed him into the alley and were ripping at him as he struggled to escape the gap. Cobb sees a small gap between the buildings at the narrow end. He throws himself into it, gets stuck halfway. The crowd bears down, grabbing for him as Cobb struggles to squeeze himself through the gap. Cobb's moving inches as his pursuers gain yards. The crowd is upon him. He bursts free, tumbling onto the street, rolling out of sight. Afterward, when meeting the chemist, Cobb is introduced to the equivalent of an opium den where 18 to 20 people all dream together. He joins in only to be woken by the mysterious train. Once he's out, he tries to spin the top to verify he's awake, only for Saito to interrupt him and it falls off the counter, making it impossible for Cobb, or as us as the viewer, to know if anything is real from this point on. After that scene, we never see another successful reality check from Cobb. That is all assuming that Cobb has adopted Mal's totem. However, and this is one of the few things that helped recreate that awe for me during the third viewing, Cobb has a separate totem that allows for us as the audience to differentiate between dreams and reality for Cobb. Before I tell you what Cobb's actual totem is, the credits. As always, you can read about me, myself, and mine at justindherd.net. I'm also on Twitter at justindherd. You can also listen to our unfiltered thoughts by picking up the Dubious Consumers podcast. Make sure you check out my Patreon at patreon.com/JustinDHerd. We've recently revamped our page in an effort to be more streamlined. For as little as $1 a video, you can get into our Discord chat, get access to polls to decide future videos, and get your name in each video. There are multiple tiers, but when you hit $5, you get your name called out at the end of each video, like Mr. Jeff Straight. Add to that, it's the only way to request videos and influence future content. While you're setting fire to the hive this week, be sure to send out the smoke signals of like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell to get notifications on all our past and future content. It's a huge help to this channel, and it's the only way we grow. So you're asking, what is Cobb's mysterious hidden in plain sight totem? His wedding ring. It only appears when Cobb is in a verified dream. When he is in the real world, he isn't wearing it. This is really the only bit of extraneous storytelling that isn't explicitly pointed out and allows you to study the film. But after you've discovered that, that's it. Everything else is explained straight up from top to bottom. As long as you are paying attention and internalizing the rules from the first watch, there's really no reason to ever watch this again. As I said, for someone like me that studies film, it's a bitter pill to swallow. And that'll do it. This has been Dubious Consumption, and I'm outro.